And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking Netflix. We're talking Formula One. We're talking what if Netflix had the distribution rights to Formula One? Would it be a game changer? Probably. But what also would it mean for the F1 fan? All this, stay tuned. So we'll talk about what it means for the fan worldwide in a bit, especially ones down in UK, for example, and onwards. But Netflix has been linked recently with a United States F1 rights bid. So Netflix is expected to enter talks with Formula One, potentially securing its United States broadcast rights. So ESPN had an exclusivity period where there could be no negotiations because only negotiate with us, for example. But that period has now expired. ESPN's current contract, and it ran from the start of 2023, it had a 3-year extension to a partnership that stretches all the way back to 2018. And it finishes at the end of this season. Now, it's understood that discussions between ESPN and Formula One management about extending this deal into the next year, into the next era, the 2026 era, it did open up towards the end of last year. But there is a but. Those talks have not yet resulted in a contract being put in place yet. So you have to wonder. And most interestingly, it's understood that this exclusivity clause, which we're talking about at the beginning, that prevented F1 from speaking to other parties over a US broadcast deal, not other parties worldwide. This is just a lap. So whilst that does not necessarily mean ESPN is out of the picture, enter potentially Netflix. And that was a report in the Times on Thursday suggested that one of the leading candidates is the Big N, the Netflix, which has been looking to expand its live sport offerings. And as we know, he's got close ties with F1 through their very watched and very popular Drive to Survive series, which rejuvenated Formula One, put new fans into Formula One as well, and made it must-watch TV, especially going up to 2021. What a season. And beyond. I'm looking forward to the 2024 one. It's going to be really interesting. But anyway, I digress. The newspaper suggested that Netflix was considering a formal bid and that its efforts were being helped by a company having recently been hired, funnily enough, by ESPN's former Vice President of Production, Katie Jackson. So Netflix is no stranger to live sport. As you know, they've secured 2 NFL games over the Christmas period, as well as becoming the US broadcast for the 2027 and 2031 Women's World Cup. Also, they have exclusive rights over the world to show the WWE Monday Night Raw over the world, and in select countries, SmackDown. And they show all the pay-per-views, where previously you had to get the WWE Network, the World Wrestling Entertainment Network, formerly WWF, if you're not sure. And they, kind of like Formula One, had their own network where you could watch all their pay-per-views. I digress. But, I mean, let's look at the broadcast of the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul boxing match last November. This proved to be a massive hit. It was the biggest streamed sporting event ever, showing the appeal of live sports. And it's been live sports that's consistently been a money earner for both sides. So Netflix was linked with a bid to F1 last time when the contract came up in discussions in 2021. And also Amazon also held talks, but they were beaten to the deal by ESPN. I believe that was just in America, but I could be wrong. But the continued growth and interest in Formula One is making things a lot more attractive to Netflix, particularly as we just talked about those live sports. They're going to have to dig into their financial coffers though. So the coffers, if the fees being sought, FOM, is much higher than the $90 million per season ESPN is currently estimated to be paying. The only downside from the perspective of Netflix and other streaming companies, such as Amazon and Apple, who've also been linked to these Formula One bids, is that there's no scope for a global sports right deal, unlike some sports, because FOM, Formula One management, prefers selling the rights in what is a regional basis. For example, separate rights in the UK, Germany, Australia, Canada, and the US. I imagine it pretty much makes sure we have all the monies. This also allows F1 greater flexibility in how it puts this deal in place, ensuring it can maximise profits. Yeah, we just said that. But in the UK, if you don't like Sky, we're stuck with it until 2029, basically. So any deal that Netflix or other global streaming company does for next year, it's not going to clash with that. And Sky Sports is very expensive, though, I think. But we'll get into that in a bit. So Autosports have quite an interesting article, which I'd like to talk about, though, before we get into the pricing, which we are definitely going to look at. I have my Sky bill that I'm going to show everyone. Could Netflix involvement in F1 change how it's broadcast? The streaming giant is understood to be considering a swoop for the US TV rights, but what implications could it have on other territories, namely Sky's Formula 1 deal, which runs until 2029. News that Netflix could be entering the bid in the race is not unexpected. However, it could have massive repercussions, and that's what we're going to be talking about now, on how the series is broadcast on the UK and elsewhere in the future. So the current platform sees F1 rights holder Liberty Media. They sell TV contracts, as we mentioned, across the globe, but that's contracts, plural. It was a business model established by, Bernie Ecclestone. During the 1980s, a broadcaster would bid to win the rights for the F1 show in their territory, for example, the UK, Canada, etc. And this not only allowed Ecclestone to sell the rights over and over in each country, but it would sometimes create a bidding war internally, between broadcasters and proved to be a lucrative revenue stream, one that the teams enjoy today because they do get some of those TV rights money. The TV companies in return would receive the live feed of the action, but they would be responsible for the programming. Now, it is this format which ultimately resulted in Sky signing a deal in 2012 where it ran alongside BBC's coverage. What Autosport doesn't quite understand is the BBC essentially said, we can't afford Formula 1 anymore. And that's where Sky got it up. So you can thank the BBC as to the reason why all of us up to 2012 in the UK have to now pay for Formula 1. Maybe it was going in that direction anyway, but yeah. And as you know, it became UK's exclusive home to all live races from 2019 after Channel 4 switched from showing half the races live to a highlights deal for all races. Plus, we have free live to air, showing a free live version of the British Grand Prix. Now, Sky extended the deal, which has disappointed some. That extends until 2029 and now takes in Germany and Italian channels until at least 2027. The trade-off being that F1's over-the-top streaming platform, F1 TV Pro, is sadly not available in those regions, the big but being if you've got a VPN. But F1 TV Pro offers subscribers in all other territories coverage from every race, including the radio transmissions. But the take-up in Europe has been slow, giving the geo-block locations in the UK, Italy and German markets one of the biggest. I mean, that's one of the biggest markets that watch Formula 1. Everyone thought, including myself, that the Sky were not going to renew and they were going to sell this F1 TV package. And I was quite happy with that, especially if it's going to be about the cost of Netflix or a tiny bit more. I think for 24 races, every Porsche Supercup race, GP, not GP2, F2, F3, etc., could be quite amazing, especially if they expanded their archives. They do have really good archive. It's about £3 something, I think, a month of old Formula 1 races as well. But that's all very well, presuming you have or can afford a Sky subscription. It is expensive, but by its very nature, it already reduces F1's potential audience reach. And it does. Because a Sky subscription, which we'll get into, is expensive, as I keep saying. Now, Liberty Media, they've got strong links to ESPN. They're keen to see the series grow in the US. Liberty offered ESPN free rights to F1 in 2018. What? The Disney-owned channel has paid $5 million a year between 2019 and 22 before signing a new agreement believed to cost from $5 million to $90 million. It runs until the end of this year. Sky has invested heavily in technology and programming. There's been very little from ESPN, who rely heavily on Sky's output, despite a significant growth in US TV audiences. But as a result, Sky's going to be mindful of this Netflix effect, given the streaming service has the potential to flick open a market with ease, and seemingly given ESPN's scant programming, and they've had, let's be fair, they're saying, and I completely agree, a lack of investment when it comes, I think when it comes to Formula 1. And for instance, they're saying Sky's going to be questioning whether it needs all its presenters and TV crews on the ground each race. Is there really a requirement for deep debriefs into races for casual fans, or indeed the costly pre-session features it produces? Well, yes, maybe. I mean, I'm pretty sure Netflix would do it. But there we go. This writer would agree, yes, as it makes a better product, but the reality is general audience may not agree or more likely care. Now, do you watch the whole of Sky F1? Normally, for the pre-season races and the British Grand Prix, I watch it from beginning to end. However, I normally tune in, because I'm doing my own thing. Normally tune in. I look at some of the stories, and some people, including myself, sometimes tune in about an hour or even half an hour before the fans, essentially when the pit lane opens. And it said Liberty Media is aware of this too, which is why it offers the F1 TV Pro service, which can provide all the analysis avid fans require, but in the form of a subscription that runs directly back to the rights holder. They kind of cut out the middleman. In terms of Netflix, its foray into live sports should be of no surprise, as we got the Netflix Cup, the streaming service's first live sporting broadcast, a crossover of F1 drivers and professional golfers competing in an event ahead of the 23 Las Vegas Grand Prix. And it goes, Netflix recruited, as we know, Kate Jackson, who was from ESPN, from the other story. But of course, it's long-standing association we can't ignore. Again, with Drive to Survive, the article goes into, yes. And it's also talking that Sky's going to be mindful of how Netflix points to its global flat platform and the way it was able to open up NFL to a wider audience, with each game attracting over 30 million global viewers from 218 countries, even on Christmas Day. I mean, that's like, whoa. In the short term, it may well get those US rights deal. I keep saying 2029 is when Sky runs out. Insiders feel that it's more than likely F1 will broker deals with a number of US broadcasters and streaming platforms in an attempt to broaden the championship's footprints in the US. And it's a similar model to other American sports. For example, they're citing the NFL. But it all points to the days of exclusivity being over, which I think is quite interesting. Opening up the markets to new audiences. And that's where Sky is going to have a problem if it does. If you can watch the race live on Netflix rather than Sky. F1 has to open up new ways of showing itself, and it's likely to have wide-reaching implications, not just for the US and the UK market, but how it handles global broadcasting. Those regional TV contracts were the past were lucrative, they're saying, but they were also inhibiting F1's growth. Why? Well, Sky does, because it's not on Freeview TV. Once again, Sky, you have to invest in that to be able to watch Formula One. Now, that's all good if you are a hardcore F1 fan, but don't forget that Formula One fans pre-2012 channel swapping, watching a crash. Oh look, I can watch this Formula One on free TV, be it in the UK BBC One, ITV One, and then back to the BBC. And funny enough, it was ITV One that made Formula One very interesting and really helped increase its popularity. Yes, the adverts sucked, but it had a really good pre-show. Now, something that Sky has to be thankful for, with I think Jim Rosenthal when it first started, and a post-show. And it was really quite interesting. It was the first time that Formula One did it. They made it a big deal. ITV spent a lot more money than it just being, for example, on BBC Grandstand, which it mostly was before. So that's what I thought was interesting. And this is the Mike Tyson fight here. Why is it so important? Well, more than 60 million households around the globe tuned into the much-touted boxing match between retired boxing legend Mike Tyson and social media star Jake Paul, according to Netflix. I mean, that is like a massive exclamation mark. Yes, that is one fight. It was really high, but this is Formula One. 24 races, more than that with the sprint races, qualifying sessions, etc. And even at WWE, viewing figures on Netflix are eclipsing cable TV ratings. This was published, I think, shortly after the Monday Night Raw. And it goes, WWE's move to Netflix is paying off, even with its second weeks dipping a bit from the highly anticipated debut. That was always going to happen. Netflix's weekly top 10 report, week ending January 19th, showed that the January 13th episode of Raw racked up 8.2 million total hours views, which translates to 3.9 million viewers. And that's Monday Night Raw. And wrestling, obviously very popular. You can make an argument, not maybe as popular as Formula One. Now, when it comes to Sky, the issue with the Sky is you need to buy the Sky package, and then you need to buy the actual channel as well. So you are looking at roughly, possibly between £40 and £50 to get Sky F1. And then you get the internet package as well, which makes it a bit more expensive. You don't have to, but if you've got Sky, it may also save you a bit more money. But to get F1 on Sky is essentially you're looking at £50 a month. Now, when we look at Netflix, when you want to choose the right plan for you, well, $5.99 is the standard monthly price. Yes, they're going to be adverts. Standard with adverts. Then you got standard without adverts, 1080p, $12.99. Once again, good. Then you got the premium 4K, £18.99. So Netflix has clearly gone up by a few quid, but $12.99 as opposed to £50 from Sky. Say, for example, they the US does get it next year, and it's about the equivalent of $12.99. That for me is very much worth it, watching every practice session. And like they do with Raw, WWE Raw, the minute it finishes, you can watch it from the beginning again, and you can watch it, I think, all the way through live, and you can even go back, I think, if you wanted to restart it as well, kind of like you can when you're recording, at least, on the Sky product. For me, that's really telling. But there is the issue. Being an F1 fan is very, very expensive. I don't know how much the F1 TV Pro is a month. It was equating to the equivalent of like £10-11 a month the last time I looked, albeit that was, I think, last year. That's not too bad, but you can't get it in the UK unless you do some kind of Harry Potter magic with the VPN where it is possible, but there's still issues about potential paying for it as well, because it will recognise it's coming from a UK bank account. So there we go. But if you made it to the end, please, thank you very much. And if you're not subscribed, give us a subscribe. How much do you pay for F1? Comment below, let us know. Is it too much? Are you concerned about the prices going forward? Would you watch F1 on Netflix? Do you have a Netflix account? Who knows? Hit that notification button if you don't want to miss a video as well. But you just watching it, getting it to the end, isn't more than enough for us. Thank you very much. If you want to do a bit more, hit that like button as well. That always makes me smile. Anyway, speak to you soon. Thank you for watching again, and stay safe.